Listen, there's nothing more charmingly Canadian than believing the system is too polite to ever completely implode. We smugly looked south during 2008, convinced our mortgages were safer, our institutions too reserved for genuine financial carnage. What a lovely thought. Because right now, in the very heart of Ontario, specifically the GTA, a quiet, bureaucratic apocalypse is unfolding. We're not talking about a market correction, we're talking about families being systematically ejected from the great Canadian dream. It's not a prediction anymore, the repossession notices are being served. When the bank takes your house, they don't send a polite email, they send a lawyer and they call it a power of sale. And if you think that sounds dramatically legalistic, wait until you hear the numbers. In the span of just 1 year, the frequency of these forced sales has more than doubled. You heard that right. It's a 112% surge in desperate listings. Every single one of those homes represents someone who went to sleep confident and woke up to find out the rules had fundamentally changed, and their equity was now collateral damage. If the system is quietly ripping up the blueprint for financial security, you need a guide who isn't afraid to call it what it is. Hit that subscribe button right now. This channel is dedicated to giving you the raw, unfiltered breakdown of the market, turning complex financial chaos into actionable information. Don't wait until the hammer drops. Subscribe and stay ahead of the curve. Let's dive into what this exponential spike truly signifies. For the uninitiated, a power of sale is Canada's version of foreclosure, but it's arguably swifter and less forgiving for the homeowner. It means the lender lists your property, dictates the terms, and you, the person who paid the down payment and made every effort, lose all control. In September 2022, the GTA had 96 of these distressed listings. By September 2025, that count had exploded to 204. A 112% jump. This isn't just statistical noise you can write off as a slight market shift, this is a shrieking siren of deep, underlying financial systemic stress. When these numbers climb, it's not the start of the problem, it's the definitive end of the line for a huge number of households who have already exhausted every other option. They've maxed out the credit cards, they've deferred payments on everything else, they've taken extra shifts driving for rideshare apps, they've borrowed from hesitant family members, they've done everything humanly possible to hold on. The power of sale only shows up when that survival phase is over. When you see this spike, you are witnessing the outcome of financial pain that began 6, 9, 12 months ago. The stress wave has already hit. To truly grasp the brutality of this acceleration, you have to rewind just a few short years. Cast your mind back to 2020. The economy was paused, but the housing market was in hyperdrive, fueled by absurdly cheap money. You could secure a mortgage at 1.7%, sometimes even lower. Payments were ludicrously manageable. Housing confidence was peaking, and to add a cruel layer of irony, official guidance from central banks was that these rates were going to stay lower for longer. People were encouraged, cajoled, even, to enter the market, often leveraging themselves right to the absolute limit. It was an environment of maximum optimism built on the foundation of historically low interest rates. Now, fast forward to the present moment. Those easy, cheap mortgages are expiring. Homeowners are stepping up to the renewal desk and are being handed a rate that starts with a 4 or even a 5. The difference isn't marginal, it's existential. For an average GTA mortgage holder, that single act of renewal can translate into a payment hike of well over $1,000 per month. That is the difference between a functional household budget and one that spirals into crisis. And that's only if you qualify for the renewal, which many, whose debt-to-income ratios have suffered in the interim, simply do not. This pivot from 1.7% to 4.5% isn't merely a cost increase, it's a systematic extraction of thousands of dollars of disposable income that was budgeted for groceries, childcare, or savings. It's the moment the system stops being supportive and starts demanding painful tribute. This is why the power of sale notices are proliferating, and why this video is essential viewing for anyone connected to the Ontario economy, whether you're a buyer, a renter, or an investor. This is the breakdown of what's accelerating the nightmare and what you absolutely must know to navigate the rough waters ahead. The surge in foreclosures isn't caused by a single, simple bad decision, it's the result of four catastrophic financial factors converging at once, creating a pressure cooker that few households were prepared for. Let's start with the most obvious and arguably the most punishing factor, the mortgage renewal rate shock. Millions of homeowners locked in 5-year fixed rates in the peak borrowing frenzy of 2020 and 2021. Picture someone who proudly secured a 5-year fixed mortgage at 1.99%. That person is now facing their lender, and the current benchmark for that same mortgage product is hovering around 4.5% or higher. The payment increase isn't just double, it's approaching triple in terms of the cost of debt service. This sudden, non-negotiable jump in housing expenses, sometimes $1,200 or $1,400 more a month, is the financial equivalent of a severe and unexpected pay cut. For a household already dealing with persistent grocery and fuel inflation, there is simply no place left to find that extra cash. It's the primary mechanism pushing perfectly responsible, solvent homeowners into the zone of distress, forcing them to miss a payment, then two, and then facing the cold, hard reality of the power of sale procedure. The second major driver, and perhaps the most insidious, impacts a huge chunk of Canadian homeowners who opted for variable rate mortgages with fixed payments. This was marketed as the best of both worlds, benefit from low variable rates while keeping your monthly payment stable. Here's the dark catch: when the central bank raised the prime rate repeatedly, a smaller and smaller portion of that fixed payment went toward chipping away at your principal, and a larger portion went to the interest. Eventually, you hit what's known as the trigger rate. This is the mathematical threshold where your set monthly payment no longer covers the interest portion of the loan, meaning your overall debt balance begins to increase, a phenomenon called negative amortization. When you hit this trigger rate, the bank steps in, and they are not subtle about it. They demand a lump sum payment to bring the loan back into compliance, they force a painful increase to the monthly payment, or they compel you to refinance, often at a far worse rate. For many Canadians, hitting the trigger rate was the moment the illusion of stability vanished, forcing them into a financial corner with no easy escape hatch. This is directly contributing to the mounting roster of missed payments and ultimately, the power of sale increase we are currently documenting. Factor 3 is the erosion of the consumer safety net, sky-high debt and evaporating savings. The financial buffer that Canadians enjoyed during the pandemic, thanks to government aid and reduced spending, is now gone. Recent statistics paint a bleak picture: household savings rates have fallen dramatically, and alarmingly, credit card balances and lines of credit usage are at near-record highs. People are financially fragile. They went from being flush with cash to living hand-to-mouth in the span of 2 years. When the cost of their primary housing expense spikes due to a rate renewal, there is zero cushion left. They are not falling from a position of strength, they are falling from an already precarious ledge. This explains the anecdotal reports of families resorting to desperate measures, driving Uber late into the night, delaying utility payments, or cashing in retirement savings. This behavior is a direct preamble to mortgage default. For those buyers who stretched their financial limits to get into the market during the peak frenzy, the slightest deviation in their budget, a car repair, a job loss, a high-rate renewal, is not a challenge, it's a terminal financial event. Finally, we must acknowledge the psychological and financial trap of declining home values. The belief that property always appreciates was the bedrock of many aggressive investment strategies and high-leverage purchases. But in many pockets of the GTA, prices have retreated by 20% to 30% from their 2021 to 2022 peaks. This has created a significant contingent of homeowners who are now underwater. Their outstanding mortgage debt is greater than the current market value of the home. This crucial shift eliminates the traditional exit strategy. If a stressed homeowner needed cash or couldn't afford the renewal, they used to be able to sell the home, pay off the mortgage, and walk away with their initial equity intact. Now, selling the home means realizing a significant loss, and in the worst cases, they can't even pay off the bank entirely. In these circumstances, where the homeowner has no option to voluntarily sell and the lender faces a borrower in default, the power of sale becomes the only viable path to recoup losses. These four converging crises, the rate shock, the trigger rate time bomb, the debt squeeze, and the equity collapse are all feeding the current acceleration of distressed listings, indicating that the Canadian housing market is entering a phase of financial reckoning that many institutions and homeowners hoped they would never see. Given the clear pattern of distress, the 112% jump in power of sale listings is not a random occurrence, but a defined signal. It's imperative that we move beyond panic and into proactive strategy. This market is unforgiving, but information is still your best defense. The strategy changes depending on your current status, so let's break down the required action for every segment of the market. If you are a homeowner, your focus must be on proactive risk mitigation. If your mortgage is due for renewal within the next 12 to 18 months, do not sit back and wait for the bank's offer. Their best offer is rarely your best offer. Immediately engage an independent mortgage broker. Begin exploring your options 6 months, even a year, in advance. This gives you time to shop around, clean up any existing credit issues, and potentially secure a rate hold. If you are a variable rate holder with a fixed payment, you must urgently contact your lender. Ask 2 crucial questions: what is my trigger rate, and where am I right now in relation to it? And what percentage of my current payment is actually going toward principal versus interest? If you are at or near your trigger rate, you need a plan, whether it's increasing your payments voluntarily or paying a lump sum, because waiting for the bank to force your hand is always the most expensive option. Most critically, if you have missed a payment, or fear you will miss one soon, call your lender before they call you. Lenders have internal hardship and restructuring programs, amortization extensions, temporary payment deferrals, product switches, that become unavailable once you are officially in severe default. The ability to find solutions is directly proportional to how early you act. Do not suffer in silence. The financial system is built on data, not emotion, and you must operate accordingly. If you are a prospective buyer, while the increase in power of sale listings might seem like a golden ticket to a bargain, approach this with extreme caution, not irrational optimism. Yes, distressed sales can present opportunities, but they are often fraught with complications. These are not standard transactions. They frequently involve legal complexities, potential title issues, delays, property neglect as the former owner knew they were leaving, and sometimes existing tenant issues. You are effectively buying the problem as well as the property. Your due diligence must be triple-checked. This is a time to work exclusively with a lawyer experienced in power of sale procedures and an agent who understands the mechanics of distressed asset purchases. The goal is not to secure the cheapest house on the block. The goal is to secure a sustainable deal that fits your budget even if rates move up further. Do not allow the rising tide of desperation to cloud your judgment. If you are an investor, the frenzy of 2020 to 2022, built on the assumption that perpetually rising rents and infinite appreciation would bail out highly leveraged deals, is officially over. The investors now facing foreclosure are often those who over-leveraged, are negatively cash-flowing, and assumed appreciation would be their insurance policy. This is the moment for extreme sobriety and caution, not gambling. While distressed assets will emerge in 2025 and 2026, the short-term trend could see prices continue to move sideways or even dip lower. Your singular focus must be on cash flow. Assume rates will remain higher for longer, and ensure any property you acquire or currently hold generates positive, reliable monthly income. Liquidate non-performing assets now, before the market is flooded with even more forced sales. The smart money is focusing on stability, not speculative gains. If you are a renter or peripheral market participant, even if you don't hold a mortgage, this crisis affects you. When a significant portion of the housing market experiences instability, it impacts the entire community structure, policy decisions, rental availability, and rental prices. The foundations of community stability are the homes within it. Awareness of this rising distress is not for panic, but for civic engagement and personal financial preparedness. If you know someone, a family member, a colleague, a friend, who is silently battling financial anxiety over their renewal or trigger rate, share this information and encourage them to seek counsel. Foreclosure is a devastating, lonely event. This rise in power of sale listings is not a footnote, it is the tip of the iceberg of a generational financial shock. The real struggle is taking place behind closed doors, the quiet, desperate late-night searches for financial help, the anxious meetings with brokers, the painful decision to sell beloved assets. For most, financial catastrophe isn't a single, spectacular explosion, it's a slow, grueling decay caused by a series of tough breaks and a lack of preparedness. Don't be a statistic. Turn this information into action. If this breakdown was valuable, please take 1 second to hit the like button, leave a comment letting me know your current market concern, and subscribe for more grounded, real-world analysis.